Danite Radio. Welcome to the Counter-Revolution.
Now, after the discussion has slowed down, we can start.
Dope. Good, because we started like 10 seconds ago. So,
Welcome back. Welcome to Danite Radio.
Danite Radio. We're here.
We have our first guest interviewee.
Yeah.
Extra special
I'm
guest.
super excited. She's a world-renowned cryptozoologist and an amateur crypto church historian.
Oh,
Does
yeah.
that work?
Oh, look at you go. Making stuff up all left and right.
I like that.
She's dope. She's a hottie.
Oh.
She's Devin Dottie, but it's Dodie. Sorry.
Dodie like coyote.
Like coyote.
That's why you can't. You were planning that rhyme for weeks, weren't you?
Yeah, I was like, Devin's coming on. I'm going to make this so awesome.
I mean, I look like the Blair Witch right now, but I'm not a
I've never
morning
seen the
person.
Blair Witch, so I didn't know. I didn't know the Blair Witch was such a cutie. I should watch that show, I guess.
Yeah, it's actually a rom-com.
Oh, nice. Sweet.
Yeah. Oh, I guess we grew up with Devin.
Yeah.
Our mom watched her for as long as I can remember personally, so.
Yeah, since she was a wee baby.
A wee bab. Yep. I was a teeny tiny little baby, and my mom was in high school. And so these guys' mom...
Your mom was not in high school.
Yeah, she was. She was 17 when she had me. She was 16 when she got pregnant with me.
That was a long time ago.
Yeah.
I
Pregnant
don't
Grove.
remember her looking that young, but I guess I was super young. So.
Yeah. She
Did
was
she
always...
go to Pleasant Grove?
Yeah,
oh,
she
I guess
did.
she would have, because she probably lived with Bruce and
Yeah.
Carolyn, huh?
Yeah, so she got pregnant, and then these guys' mom pretty much raised me while she finished school and then got into nursing school also.
And now she's a
Doctor,
correct?
yeah. She has her
That's awesome.
doctorate in nurse practitioning.
Your mom's
DNP.
dope.
Yeah, she's pretty rad.
She's cool.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
So there's some. Oh, now she has her own little baby
Two,
girl.
yeah.
You have two?
Two,
What?
yeah.
Where have I been?
10 and 6.
Oh.
Wait, no, I'm talking about you and your babies.
Oh, I thought you said my mom.
Y'all had more.
And
Yes.
now Devin has her own child.
Now I have my
I'm
own
like, you have
children.
10 and 6.
Oh my gosh, no.
Yeah, that'd be funny, huh?
Ugh.
No, but your little sisters are very cute.
They are.
Young ladies. And then your daughter, who I haven't seen, I assume is also very cute.
Not even biased, honestly. She is the cutest baby.
Good.
And I have proof. I have video proof. I have photographic proof.
Yeah.
Unlike a lot of the cryptids we're going to talk about, I have proof.
Good.
She is
Good.
very cute.
Her name is...
Naomi.
I guess we don't have to come up with names. Sorry, I don't know.
That's okay.
We're horrible at etiquette around here.
Yeah, how do you feel about your child's name being world famous on the internet?
I don't mind.
She's,
Because now 40 strangers are going to know her name.
I'm not going to put her social security number out
40.
here or, like, our address,
yeah,
so...
that's good.
I was being generous with the 40.
Yeah, we don't have 40 listeners. So.
That's okay. You'll get there.
Well, I'm afraid your message is going to fall on not very many ears.
That's totally fine with me.
And you
31 on the last episode.
Oh.
are still working?
Yeah, I work from home.
Oh, you're not at the bakery anymore?
I still work for Kneaders, but
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
I don't bake. I just bake at home now. So,
4 Kneaders?
for myself.
Oh, I was like, that's weird.
That would be cool if I could bake at home for Kneaders. But
You just
no.
do the books or something at home, or what do you do?
Yeah, I just answer calls for
Oh,
customers.
awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. And Darren still works over there?
He doesn't.
Oh.
He works at Mighty Light. You know, like...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
They manufacture tables and chairs and
Yeah,
stuff. So.
we could use some tables and chairs in this place, couldn't we?
Yeah. Yeah, we probably
Yo, Mighty Light, we need sponsors. If you want 20 people to know how awesome your tables and chairs are. Right.
Oh, shoot.
So, we kind of asked you what we should research.
Yeah.
We didn't. Did you?
I did a little bit.
Oh,
not,
I didn't.
Not a lot, but I did a little.
Yeah.
Because I look forward to our first guest being able to do the research and not me not having to feel guilty about
Yeah.
not doing any work, because I never do any work anyways. I just feel guilty.
Well, the nice thing about, like, this topic that I kind of came up with is that I feel like a lot of it is going to be, because it's not, I mean, I like talking about doctrinal truths, but it's also kind of my opinion also. And so
Sure.
I would like to get your guys' opinions on things, because it's like, it's cool to be able to relate my own personal interests to now the gospel, which I'm also interested in. And I find a lot of correlations and parallels, and it's just nice to see what other people think too, and to be told, no, you're wrong. You know what I mean? Like, that's cool that you thought of that, but this is actually how it is. So I just kind of wanted to bounce off of your guys' pre-existing knowledge.
Oh, he's the scriptorian.
Yeah.
I'm here about just give my opinion until he tells me I'm wrong.
Awesome. Yeah.
So let's maybe start. What is the topic you
have chosen?
So I've always been interested in the paranormal and just creepy things. Cryptozoology, which we mentioned earlier, which is the study of creatures that have been, like, of myths and legends that, you know, we don't have scientifically on records, but are definitely seen by people, like Bigfoot.
Sure.
And then, you know, people's encounters with, I feel like with aliens and ghosts, and even, I know it sounds ridiculous, but even like vampires and stuff.
Okay.
Those have to come from somewhere, right? Like, they're all across the world, and all these different civilizations have their own sort of like twists, but on the same creatures. And it just seems, you know, it just seems interesting to me that all across the globe, these people who aren't necessarily communicating with each other come up with kind of the same creatures. And it's really cool, and I love it's just fascinating to me. But now that I have like a little bit of knowledge of doctrine and of gospel truths, I've been finding a lot of like parallels between people talking about certain creatures and then being able to relate them to actual, like, I don't know, scripture, like beings in the scriptures, like being deceived by evil spirits and stuff. And I honestly think that a lot of that is. And so the first one that comes to mind to me, and especially because when I would talk about this with my husband, Darren, who returned missionary, and grew up in the church, skinwalkers.
And a Trump supporter.
Oh my gosh.
So you know he's super smart.
Married to a Trump supporter.
Oh, I love that guy.
Let the record show I'm a little more liberal than that.
Darren, I love you, bro.
It's an interesting mix.
Sorry, I didn't mean to bring that up. I didn't mean to embarrass you.
And I don't know, I don't want to say he's an outright Trump supporter, but he supports him more than anybody else. I feel like I have to defend him. He doesn't hate women, you guys. He treats me like a queen.
Yeah, no, don't defend him. I love Trump's my hero, so
okay.
He's the greatest orange man that ever lived.
Oh my gosh.
The greatest Cheeto that ever walked the earth.
So talking about...
Let's talk skinwalkers.
Okay, skinwalkers is Native American lore, and the belief is that they are somebody who... is able to basically shapeshift, right? And they have superhuman abilities. And the reason why they're able to do those things is because they have to do something really terrible, and most often it is killing and cannibalizing family members. And that's like part of what gives them their power, or it's like their rite of passage to become a skinwalker. And I always just kind of thought, because I'm not Native American, obviously, and so for me, I was always just like, oh, it's like a fun, scary story, and I would talk about it with Darren, and then Darren, who doesn't believe in paranormal stuff, other than, you know, your basic, like, yeah, spirits are around us all the time type of stuff because of our beliefs.
Sure.
He doesn't really feed into that kind of stuff, but he's like, of all the scary things out there, I'm pretty sure skinwalkers are real.
Whoa, really?
Yeah, and I was like...
I'm with him 100%.
They're
they're the scariest thing ever.
Yeah, and that scared me more than anything, because it's like, whoa, somebody that I respect and like trust, and somebody who is a huge skeptic is saying this. So I was like, well, what makes you think that? And he was like, well, they talk about the Lamanites using... the secret combinations and stuff, and like, I don't know if this is the actual term, but like the anti-priesthood.
Sure. To
be able to do things like that, and he says, well, it's even in scripture, and he's like, I really believe that it's like evil, that it's people, or it's being, or like evil spirits, and they're really like, they're real and they're out there. And I had never thought of it that way before, that like
Sure.
And maybe it's because, like I said, I'm not Native American, so that's not my belief, but all of a sudden being able to put it in my own belief, and then it was like, oh crap, that's really scary. So I don't know what your guys' take on that, on like the secret combinations and those.
I guess I've never really thought of it from a gospel perspective, but I know that every time I go camping, they come up, and it scares the
which
Jesus
is like,
out of
you
me for
shouldn't
sure.
talk about that when you're camping.
Yeah, but I don't know. It comes up, and we talk about it all the time, and always. I'm a big believer. I believe they're real. They're out there, for sure. And,
Interesting.
And what part of the lore is that they're angry against the white trespassers, and what culture has more reason to be angry than the Native American one?
Yeah.
I guess. At this point, less so, but back in the day, and I can see how that tradition would pass on.
Sure.
Less so now that the white government.
Well, I don't know. I feel like it's kind of the same now because we just continually, like, we're perpetuating our taking advantage of them. But
I love this stuff as well. Like, I used to work nights. I used to listen to a lot of Coast to Coast.
oh yes, coast to coast.
Yeah. I've read a few fiction books, novels. That and all you have to do is put a different spin on something like this to get me to fall in love with your novels.
Yeah.
Or TV shows. So,
That's true. He can talk about them for hours.
yeah. But I've never... And the Skinwalker stories do always give me chills as well. I've noticed more so than anything else, which is weird now that I think about it. But I'm still not sure. Here's my thing. People are wicked.
Yeah.
And they don't need help from supernatural.
Interesting.
Like I could see, for example, the Dracula story. That was just a wicked man who actually did drink blood, trying to scare his enemies.
Vlad the Impaler.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In my mind, that's what it was. But I still love the stories. Like I'm a super big nerd about stuff like that. But
Yeah.
I would never say I think that skinwalkers exist, But it's interesting that both of you...
Oh, I'm convinced.
And I'm not wholly convinced, like, only, I'm kind of the creed of I'd like to see it and have a little bit more proof, which is funny being like a religious person too.
Sure.
But for things like that, but it does make me think, because it's like, not only now is it just a fun hobby and it's fun to hear about, but now I can actually like get the wheels turning and relate it to my own beliefs and almost prove it to myself, sort of. Yeah.
Yeah, and like I'm a guy that wishes it was all true, like
Ooh.
I want this all to be true, even though it would be terrible.
Yeah.
But I think you're right. You're onto something with the before we started the episode. You mentioned the third of the host.
Yeah.
Or did she say that during? Did you say
I
that?
It was in the
texted
text
it,
for
yeah.
sure. I'm not sure.
So, I agree. There are wicked spirits here, and who knows how they manifest, and who knows what they do when they get into, because they do possess humans.
Yeah, they can get into us and influence us.
Sure. So who knows what happens at that point when?
Yeah.
Because the more fear that the enemy can sow, the better
it
is for him. So.
Yeah, exactly.
That is super interesting.
Yeah, and that kind of, like, the third of the host of heaven kind of brings me to another thing. So a friend and I were talking about this, and she had watched the Ted Bundy tapes. And most people know who Ted Bundy is. He murdered a bunch of women, and he was just an awful monster. And there's, like, this huge renaissance right now of people loving Ted Bundy and wanting to get into the Ted Bundy story. And there's, like, a ton of documentaries out there, and they made a movie, and Zac Efron played Ted Bundy, and it's just kind of gotten out of hand. It's almost like everybody's fangirling over this horrible monster. But she'd watched the Ted Bundy tapes and told me, was just kind of giving me a brief synopsis, and I should have watched it, but I just couldn't find the time. I have a baby, but But apparently in the show, they talk about, well, we know Bundy was just this awful human, and you think, when you hear about murderers, like the infamous ones, you hear about like Dahmer and Gacy and the Night Stalker and, all those different ones, Golden State Killer, you think like, well, why would somebody do that, right? Like, we know that there are a lot of it's a lot of a mental game, and it could be background and the way that they were raised, but seriously, what would possess somebody to want to literally rip another human up and to get sexual with them too, which I feel like is another big tool that Satan uses, is sexuality and violence. And he uses it to twist us. He takes, something that should be good and makes it just awful. And anyway, and so we were talking about the Bundy tapes, and they were talking in the tapes about how when he would talk about, he would just be a totally normal dude talking to them, but then when he would switch to talking about the murders, his pupils would dilate, he would just totally change his face, and all of a sudden become this like cold creature, and someone said even that there would be a smell that comes off of him that was different.
Really?
Weird.
Yeah, and I was like, that is so interesting. And the first thing I thought was, is it sulfuric?
Yeah. Sure.
But so for me, I was thinking about the third of the hosts of heaven and how much influence they can have over us. And cut this out, Shadow, if you need to, because it's...
Oh, we cut nothing.
Oh.
Dear.
I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, though. But there's a point in, like, the temple video where it says, you have the ability to bruise man's heel, but he can crush your skull, right? So we know we have more power over Satan and over...
Which is actually in the scriptures, right?
I believe so.
Yeah.
Okay, continue.
Which is, like, my favorite part, because it's so metal. Yeah, you can bruise man's heel, but he can crush your skull. Or he says crush your head, but skull. And so I just think, well, how much influence do they really have over us? But also, I wonder if those spirits who don't have a body can get into because they want to experience life like we do, but they just want the dark things. And how, a person like Bundy, it's just interesting to think about, what if, we could somehow see that these spirits are getting into him and influencing him even further and escalating. And I'm not going to say not to take the blame off of him and to be like, oh, these spirits got to him, because he was a horrible person. And there has to be some sort of inclination in us that manifests itself, and then they come and they feed it more and more and more. Because that's another thing with murderers, is there's always an escalation. They start little and they end big. It starts with, oh, I'm just gonna, like, a really good example would be, what's his name? He was the co-ed killer, and he would, at first, he just started by giving girls rides, and then he would just, well, I'll pick her up, but then he would let them go safely, and then it turned into kind of like restraining them a little bit more, and then eventually he, killed them, right? Like, he got to a point, it's that escalation. And it makes me think of, I don't know if anybody's read Visions of Glory, if you guys have read that. Okay, it's a really interesting book. And it just has a lot of interesting stuff in it, but it's not doctrine. It's not, this guy who had these visions says, like, I'm not a prophet. These weren't meant to be for anybody else. I think these visions I had were my own. But they were just really interesting, and somebody wanted to write a book about them. He's totally anonymous, too. We don't know who he is. But he specifically talks about having a vision where he was able to see spirits, and he was able to see the third of the hosts literally getting into people. Like, he was in a bar or something like that, and people who were drinking and getting drunk and doing whatever, he could literally see them getting into the person and coming out and feeling like, it was almost like they had... like getting a little bit high, right? Like they got to feel that for a minute, and then it makes the person want to drink more. It's just the escalation, right?
Yeah.
Which is true about alcohol. It's, you drink a little bit and then you want more and more, and then your inhibitions are gone. And then, so it's, I don't know, it's just a really interesting thing to me to think, I wonder, there has to be some sort of predilection with the person already, I think, because obviously not everybody's being influenced that way. And I think if those spirits had their way, all of us would be like that, and it would just be a freak show, and we would be murdering each other left and right. But I just feel like I don't know, it made me think. What are your guys' thoughts?
So, as far as power goes, it has to be utilized. Mm-hmm. So, obviously, old T. Bundy didn't utilize the power to crush the skull.
Right.
Which, if the power's there and you're not utilizing it, then apparently it can be flipped and it can be used to crush you know. So that's just those were my thoughts when you were speaking. But about you, Shadow?
I think I'm not convinced that if the devil had his way, we would all be murderers. I think if the devil had his way, we would all be wicked, and his goal is to pull us away from
right, not necessarily total carnal,
towards the sins that we are predisposed to.
Okay.
And even things like abandoning your family would be something that, and I'm not judging anyone, but I'm saying that it's a tool that Satan would use to push us down the wrong path. And there are exceptions to every rule. There's things going on. I get that, but even things, everyday common occurrence, can be used as tools for Satan to push us down a dark path. And if we go to the scriptures, there are examples of people who have killed people. There's lots of them.
Oh yeah.
And so you take the example of Cain, who committed the first murder, and the Lord says that his soul is completely gone, or his humanity is completely erased because of the stranglehold that sin and vice had on him. Mm-hmm. Then you take the example of David, who also committed murder, and it's been said that he will receive no forgiveness for that sin. But he still managed to do good things, and he spent the rest of his life regretting his decision. Mm-hmm. And he still did good things as king and ruler of Israel for many years. And so there's kind of this varying degree of what hold the devil had on him, but the punishment is the same. He still fell from his exaltation, which is interesting. And I guess the point I'm making is just that the devil didn't need to make David a serial killer to win. He just needed him to kill one person.
Right.
And he needed it to be in the right situation. And the devil didn't need to make him a man who married multiple women, because he already was that. Mm-hmm. The devil needed him to marry someone who was already taken and had already made covenants. And in so doing, to transgress the commands of God. So it's the devil's goal and the devil's work is individual for each of us. And even in this room, the things that are going to tempt you and the things that are going to tempt Rocky are different from the things that are going to tempt me. And they can be similar, but still different because they're individually tailored. Because that old snake knows us. He knows real good what he's doing and how to sway us from the path. So that's kind of my thoughts on the serial killer's aspect of it.
Interesting.
And I don't know how far possession goes into that.
Yeah.
Or demonic possession goes into that.
Well, no. I think that you guys are basically agreeing with each other, though. Because
Yeah.
She said if the devil had his way, it'd be chaos. And what you're saying is the devil doesn't have his way because, therefore, he has to tailor his temptations to each one of us.
Or maybe I think what shadow means is we all have our own temptations. So like certain people, like those people who are serial killers, that is their temptation, is needing to feed that. And like for me, it would be like cigarettes and alcohol. Like I would love to do that, and that's a much easier thing to feed. But so we all have our own.
I just don't know if his goal is to make us all serial killers.
We all
and maybe it is. I don't know. I don't know.
But that makes more sense to me. And that it would just be tailored individually. I like that. Because, he doesn't need absolute chaos. He just needs us to not be on the right path.
Sure.
That's how he wins.
Sure. Yeah, and Yeah. I'm particularly bad like you because I would also enjoy cigarettes and alcohol
Yeah.
after I killed somebody.
After. There's nothing like a cigarette and a pool of blood.
Yeah. So, just kidding.
That
really,
looks like a movie scene in my brain.
I think, yeah. If Satan had his way with me, there'd be a wake of bodies behind me. So, and not necessarily in a serial killer deviant way, just in a you're in my way, you're dead.
Yeah.
You know.
Yep.
So, well, maybe it is a serial killer way. I don't know. To show my power over the people around me.
I don't know. I really don't know.
Maybe you guys don't understand the way I'm thinking right now.
Yeah,
Maybe
we'll be
I'm a
like, oh, we didn't
sociopath.
know. Rocky was totally normal. He was a family man.
He never said anything like he wants to kill everyone that he comes in contact with.
We had no idea.
No, everyone would be like, yeah, I saw that coming for sure. Really? You guys didn't lock him up a long time ago? What are you thinking?
Well, he was missing part of his finger, so we
Yeah,
didn't think he could do
right.
much harm.
Yeah, you were there for that, weren't you?
I don't know.
Yeah, you were. a
You
little
say I
baby.
was, but I do not
You don't
remember.
remember. Yeah, you were there, though, because we were...
Weren't you only 5?
I was 3. Oh, so wait, how old are you?
26. I'll be 27 this year.
There was a baby there. I thought it was you. Maybe I was older than I thought.
Well, a
Maybe it was
baby wouldn't
Pebbles.
remember.
I know you wouldn't remember, but
Oh.
I think you were there. No, Pebbles and Charlie were there.
And a baby?
Yeah.
Golden?
No, I think Devin.
Golden's older than
I
Devin.
think Mom was pregnant with.
Golden's older than you, yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, so you weren't born yet.
No,
I'm up in the night.
that's okay.
Thanks for proving me wrong, Shadow. Guess who just made the murder list?
Oh.
Math. Got you with that math argument.
Math.
So yeah, but you mentioned Shadow, that about Cain, which brings me to my next cryptid.
Okay.
Drum roll. Anybody have any guesses?
Bigfoot.
Bigfoot, Sasquatch, my favorite.
Right.
Interesting.
Some people believe, right, that he is Cain and
Mhm.
he's wandering and
Sure.
meant to live alone forever. Some people believe that there are multiple
Feet.
Bigfoots.
Bigfoots,
Okay.
I think is the correct vernacular.
Yeah, but we like big feet better.
That there are multiple of them, which would mean that there would have to be male and female because they have to be able to procreate and yada, yada, yada. But what are your guys' thoughts on Sasquatch, on Bigfoot? Do you believe? Do you not believe? Is it Cain? Is it its own species? A very elusive one.
So, was not... Here's my thing, like, I was always... It might be like a jealousy thing, but I had friends that had seen Bigfoot, or at least said they had, you know? And so, I'd never seen anything like that, and I was like, oh, one day I'm going to see something cool, you know? I'm going to see a UFO or a Bigfoot. And now, out of spite, I just don't believe they exist because
you haven't.
seen them by now.
Because you never
know?
have seen them.
But an interesting thing about Bigfoot is Les Stroud. You know who that is?
Yeah, he's the survival guy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who is super cool? Is like on board with the Bigfoot thing. I
Is
think.
he?
Yeah, he's like, nah, it's true. Like I'm pretty sure.
Okay, I love that.
And like he's like joining all these crazy Bigfoot hunters who are obviously crazy, and he's like, nah, we're gonna find it, you know. So I've been, I don't know. I it's funny how easily swayed I am. Like the right person's like, nah, it's true, and I'm like,
Oh, maybe it
okay,
is.
well, Les is way cooler than I am, so
I'm
he
totally
must
that
have.
way too with certain things
Yeah,
where it's like,
so-
oh, I really like this person and they believe this, so I'll
Yeah.
totally listen to it.
Yeah, but as far as Cain goes, I'm not sure. Is that
His punishment is to wander the earth.
Is
till
it?
its second coming?
that is his punishment?
Yeah. Alone too. He can't. It's not like he can be around us and be alive and be like, hey neighbor. He's not like a vampire.
Which I'm not sure. The whole rock over the head thing is kind of would prevent him from being a very good neighbor, I think. But
Yeah.
What do I know? You know, maybe he's just got a thing for killing family or something.
Yeah.
But I didn't know that. I didn't know that was part of his punishment, was to walk forever.
To wander the earth until the second coming.
Interesting.
He's I don't know. He's a really interesting character.
Interesting that his punishment is the same as, is it Paul?
But I think...
As the three Nephites?
John the Beloved.
So his punishment is the same as their reward?
Well, their reward... I think
No,
theirs
you're
is
right.
a reward because they can live among us.
Sure.
Because they can interact with us and they get to see the good side of things.
Sure.
And Cain, I think he's exiled. He can't be around humans.
He has to pity himself. So maybe he is. Maybe that's the deal.
But it's also interesting because there's a mark put upon him where when we see it, we know who it is. Like that's the idea of this mark, and we know who it is so that we don't kill him, because if we do, we lose our soul or whatever.
Oh.
Is my understanding of the scripture.
So basically he could be killed by like a person. He could be killed, but as long as he goes what's the word?
I don't know.
Undisturbed, he'll just live forever.
For sure.
Until the second coming. Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. It was part of his punishment. His punishment is really weird.
I'm starting to think that Cain might be Bigfoot.
Right?
It's a yeah.
If ever there was a Bigfoot, I guess that would be
Cain. Let's look at what it says about him. Huh?
Yes, please.
We're looking at
And while Shadow looks, I love Bigfoot. I hope he's real.
Yeah.
And I don't know about it being Cain because I feel like there are multiple Bigfoots. And I hope there are because they are my absolute favorite. And I'm so in love with Bigfoot. And I just think it's the funnest of the cryptids. I think he's a happy-go-lucky fun guy.
Yeah.
He just likes to play in the woods and frolic and...
So you don't think he's a brother killer?
I don't know. That's the thing, because I could totally see that's where...
Fratricide? Not fratricide?
It's fratricide.
Fraternicide is like where you kill all your frat brothers. Fraternity brothers. All right. Continue.
Somebody get out the Google machine.
Sorry, I get off.
No, I could see that... I could see that being the truth. But my own personal hope is that he's his own species, and there are male and female and babies, and they're like us, but they live in the woods, because that's more fun for me in my mind, rather than having it's Cain walking around, because that's not fun for me. And if I saw him, I wouldn't be stoked on it. I'd be like, hey, you SOB.
Cain, you killer.
Okay.
Interesting.
But that's what a lot of people believe. Well, Christians, people who read the Bible, and that's what Bigfoot is.
Speaking of things that Christians believe, what are your thoughts on the Nephilim?
I have none because I don't know what that is.
What?
See,
this is what you're gonna have to look into.
I'm a noob.
So there are many Christian faiths that believe that
at the time of the flood.
Yeah, when the fallen angels, the sons of God, came down and found the women beautiful and had children with them. The children were Nephilim.
And they're separate from the third of a host of heaven.
So they're actually like they're half angel. They're demigods.
Mm-hmm. That's the idea.
Well, no, because angels aren't gods, so they're demi-angels.
Yeah.
But they but that's why the flood happened, because there was a bunch of these Nephilim running around and they'd messed up the
natural order.
The natural order.
But the flood wiped them out.
Yeah. Which is another Christian, not necessarily, or definitely not Latter-day Saint, but
doctrine.
But a Christian, and I don't know if it's even, is it a Christian doctrine, or did that? Yeah, I tried that last time, it didn't work.
Oh.
It drives me crazy. It doesn't show up apparently on the web, but.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know what just happened, the air vent was blowing air into the speaker, and I thought that I could deter the airflow by, flipping it to the side, but
negative.
Alas.
And most of you knew what happened because Rocky tries every week.
Yeah, I find it very frustrating. So
I've tried to turn it off. It doesn't work.
That's okay.
So sorry.
But anyway, I had never heard of the Nephilim, and that's really interesting to me.
I think it's Nephilim.
With an M.
But I could be wrong.
An M for Mancy.
But there's some super interesting stories. Seeing as how you're into cryptozoology, that's something.
Yeah.
So, like the giants that they talk about before the flood.
Oh.
They thought that those would be Nephilim, and
Dang.
Yeah.
That is really cool.
yeah.
Yeah, see, now I can walk away and go look something else creepy up.
Sure, for sure.
Yeah, it's an interesting one.
Yeah, and that's another one. I hope it's true, but
You know what that makes
Who
me
knows,
think
yeah.
of
What's
is, because when I said demigod, and obviously they would be like demi-angels, but the, like, Greek and Roman mythology, all of their gods are very human-like, and they have human emotions and reactions.
Sure.
I wonder, like, that would be just a cool correlation between those, like, maybe, because they were obviously more than human, but, like, maybe if their beliefs somehow sprung from the Nephilim, but I'm just reaching a little bit. It just made me think of that.
no, 100%. I'm with you.
Yeah, it's an interesting one for sure.
What'd you get for us on?
For old Cain?
On the Cainster.
Okay. Genesis chapter 4. For those of you who are following along in your scriptures. Just in case anybody wants to look it up and check what we're saying. So after Cain is caught, the Lord says, "And now thou art cursed from the earth, which hath opened her mouth to receive thy brother's blood from thy hand. When thou tillest the ground, it shall not henceforth yield unto thee her strength. A fugitive and a vagabond shalt thou be in the earth." And Cain said unto the Lord, "My punishment is greater than I can bear. Behold, thou hast driven me out this day from the face of the earth, and from thy face shall I be hid, and I shall be a fugitive and a vagabond in the earth. And it shall come to pass that everyone that findeth me shall slay me. And the Lord saith unto him, Whosoever slayeth Cain, vengeance shall be taken on him sevenfold. And the Lord set a mark upon Cain, lest any finding him should kill him." And then he says, "He left the presence of the Lord. He went into the land of Nod, and conceived a son."
Cain conceived a son.
Yes.
Bigfoot family.
Mm.
Cain conceived a son, which means there was a woman involved.
His wife.
But
Who we have other record of.
the family of Cain goes, like, there's a lineage there, right? Like they basically invented war.
There is
Correct.
somewhat of a lineage, yeah.
Yeah.
He's not,
So they are a part of the human race for a
Yeah.
while.
Okay.
but potentially, yeah, I don't know.
Bigfoot's still happy-go-lucky guy.
Yeah, he's still
Yeah.
a cool guy.
Thus far? Yeah,
Thus far.
agreed.
Yeah, I don't think we have any stories of Bigfoot ripping people apart. He's not like a Wendigo or any scary thing like that.
Sure. Which is basically a skinwalker, right? What is a Wendigo?
Yeah, I actually am not as well versed on Wendigo, but I know that they're big and they're scary. They, like, a lot of stories that I've heard are they smell like rotten flesh, like they're just disgusting, like they smell awful, and they're all the pictures that people, like all of the drawings of him and stuff, or he's got antlers and like a skull for a face, but like a deer skull, but he's just kind of looks like made up of different parts of other animals, but he rips humans up. I don't know. I don't know a whole lot about it, and I'm sure somebody's out there like screaming at me being like, "No, this is what the Wendigo is," but that's just what I've seen.
We don't have that many listeners. Hopefully
Well.
you'll bring some.
Eventually somebody will be out there cursing my name because
Probably. I actually have a story about that.
about the Wendigo.
Maybe.
Okay.
So, when I was a kid, there was like this autistic child that went missing. Not in our neighborhood, but close. And so we all volunteered to go look, And it was like 2 a.m, and we're looking through this yard. And all of a sudden, it stunk so bad. Just like rotten flesh, And it was like, what is that? I was with like 3 people in our ward. It was kind of weird. Like, I was probably 14. And I was with 3 other adults. I don't know where my dad was. I don't know if he was just like, well, have fun and went home or what. But
That sounds like Terry.
It stunk so bad, and all of a sudden, we look in the back of this truck, and there's a dead sheep. Just like in these people's driveway, a rotting dead sheep.
Like rotting, like not like, oh, we went out
it
and
was
killed
disgusting. Like, it stunk so bad.
it. Ew.
Yeah, it was weird. So, Could have been a lot worse, though, if it was a Wendigo.
I was going to say, so that wasn't a Wendigo. That was a dead sheep.
Yeah, it was a dead sheep.
I was really hoping that was going to go somewhere else.
I knew it would be. Sorry. I couldn't help myself.
I'm on the edge of my seat, like, Rocky's been holding this gem all this time, and I didn't know.
Oh, sorry.
You guys should have seen how excited she was, and then just crashed and burned.
She's like, so it was a dead sheep. Like, how many?
Yeah. And then we looked in the bed of the truck. Oh, no. And it was Did you find the kid?
Yeah, he was like the next day, he was in the trunk of his dad's car.
Oh,
He
locked himself in there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually remember that. I didn't go out and look for him. I was too young, but I remember
They say he
hearing that.
locked himself in there, but the dad was acting pretty shady.
Really?
Yeah.
Or it could have been a Wendigo. Just locked him in the car.
Yeah.
And killed the sheep.
That stinky Wendigo.
He was like, I was going to rip this kid apart, but the trunk sounds more fun to me. Oh my
And watch, I'm going to get all of the volunteers looking for him to smell me.
Because it's going to be
They're
a really
think
good
it's
prank.
This sheep. Oh.
It's like the Wendigo's
They'd be
version of
so
the poop
awesome.
on the dollar.
Yeah. They just think, they're just like really super good pranksters. They don't ever kill anybody. Or
Oh
anything.
my gosh.
Oh,
Just
so
super
awesome.
elaborate pranks.
Yeah, like, watch, I'm going to rip apart this kid and his whole family's going to cry super bad about
Because this is
it.
going to be so funny. Watch how the mom cries.
Go to him.
Watch how the mom cries. Oh, so awesome. David, you're the best. All right, back to topic. So,
Okay. So, we've talked about some things.
yeah.
And now I'm trying to think of the next one that people and alien encounters and visitations from, like, angels, right?
Sure.
Okay. Alien encounters. A lot of people talk about missing time. A lot of people talk about they have, like, their memory's been wiped, but then they'll have reoccurring dreams or they'll just have, like, these flashes of memory that eventually
Sure.
sometimes come back to them, which to me is like, I don't know, alien technology, you could do a little better than that. Like,
Yeah.
just wipe my memory clean, but whatever.
Yeah.
But, you know, there's, like, the signs of alien abduction or having an encounter with an alien. And I just wonder, there has to be an explanation for that, because so many people have,
Similar.
similar experiences.
Sure.
And, you know, with seeing UFOs and stuff like that, which I don't think I've ever seen a UFO. I don't think I've ever had an encounter with an alien. They're actually, like, I'm more scared of aliens than anything else, because
Sure.
they're creepy.
Yeah.
But, I mean, we believe, right? Like, we know for a fact that there are other worlds out there, and with people like us, because, you know, God created multiple worlds, and but we're not meant to, like, interact with each other. Shadow,
Right.
I don't know if you know more about that, but that's basically the gist, right? Like, we're not...
A disclaimer to everyone listening.
Yeah.
Nothing that I say from this point forward is doctrine.
No, exactly. This
And-
whole thing.
I served my mission in Oklahoma, which for some reason is full of people who have theories about this.
Ooh.
So I have thoughts,
And?
is what I'll say from there. Is there more you have to add, or can I share some?
No, I want you to share some now.
What,
So-
before?
Okay, go.
Before. There's one thing. Have you seen Ancient Aliens, this series?
I watched a little bit.
So they actually have a episode on Latter-day Saints,
Oh.
which we are the only church, the only Christian church that believes that God lives on another planet.
Yeah.
So essentially, God would be an alien,
Yeah.
which brings
By the
some,
technical term?
sure, which brings some perspective to our beliefs in this area.
Yeah. Because we know him and Christ have a physical body now.
Yeah,
They've been.
100%.
Okay, so.
Go ahead, Shadow.
So I guess I don't know where to start. In the time of the Tower of Babel,
Mm-hmm.
these people built a tower in order to get to heaven. And I've heard it theorized that the city of Enoch was the heaven they were trying to get to. It was an actual physical city that was lifted up, and they could see it. It was lifted up over a process of time, so they could see it. They were building a tower to get to an actual place. I've heard that idea. I've also heard that when they say tower, what they actually meant was a tower that served as a landing station for an interstellar rocket, which they were going to get on and fly to heaven. That I had somebody present this theory to me, and they were stopped because God has us
where He wants us.
Where He wants us, yeah. And He doesn't want us exploring outside of Earth.
Right, and I think probably just because this is where we need to have our experiences here, like, it's not going to do us any good to visit other worlds. I mean...
So, if that's the case, I would suspect that the Lord would have the same rule in place for other planets who are trying to visit here. And so it kind of... a little bit, if you accept that, it debunks the idea of UFOs.
Yeah,
but it doesn't debunk the idea of visitors from other places.
Yeah. That, I mean, I just barely said, like, God doesn't want us to go to other planets, basically, but obviously, like, space exploration is awesome, and it teaches us so much, and I think...
And it makes you wonder about, like, if that's really what it was, why would God allow the moon landing? Or space travel of any kind.
Well, I think that's okay because we can travel. He gave us this solar system, right? He gave us our area, I think, and we can explore within that. But like, why is there so much mystery beyond that? You know, like I just think we're never going to be able to make it to a planet where there are other people.
Or perhaps the government knew that the Lord wouldn't allow space travel, and so they faked it. They faked the moon landing.
Oh, are you a moon landing? Do you?
No, I'm just. Oh. All of this is conspiracy at this point. Like I have no idea. I'm just like the Tower of Babel thing. Conspiracy. It's all conspiracy.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just think it's interesting.
As you know, Devin, as a huge fan.
Yeah.
We've already done an episode on some conspiracy theories from a Latter-day Saint point of view.
Oh.
Yeah. Go back.
Should have listened to that one.
I probably should have brought this up at the time. I didn't even think about that.
See, I just assumed that the podcast didn't exist until I showed up.
Oh, yeah.
Or at least it didn't have any sort of a body.
You're right. We just existed in the void, and you brought us to the...
Yeah, you brought us to the forefront of people's minds. And
Well, you're welcome.
I mean, you are the world's leading cryptozoologist and crypto church
the world's
historian.
Leading crypto church historian that we know.
For sure.
Yeah. And I don't know if I... put a disclaimer at the beginning of this too, that I'm not an expert on any one topic whatsoever.
We don't do disclaimers.
Okay, well,
we don't believe in them.
Yeah.
Well, I'm disclaiming.
Nah, you're good. We know what it is, but you're our expert, so whether you like it or not,
I'm your in-house expert. I'll take that.
Yeah, there we go.
Perfect.
So I have heard similar theories around the city of Enoch, but if you think about it, were they taken to heaven where God lives? Is that what it says? Or were they taken to just another planet? Because I've heard they're just on another planet waiting to come back and teach the gospel in the last days, you know? So who knows? I mean, and who knows how you transport a city to heaven, you know? We don't know what that looks like. Who knows if God has a ship or... You know, I don't know.
Well, I've heard some weird theories about that too, about alien encounters are actually visitations from angels, and like, you know, and when they say like a lot of angel visitations are, and he came down, he was covered by light and all this stuff, and obviously we know like the alien spaceship classic trope is the big beam of light that like can somehow magically levitate people up and down. They can beam them up, Scotty.
The guy who told me that the Tower of Babel was actually an interstellar rocket also said that the city of Enoch was an interstellar vessel. Right. But because it was prepared by the Lord, it was okay. It was fine. Mm-hmm. And so it was, instead of a city in the way that we think of it, it was just a large vessel. A large ship that
Okay.
They boarded him. He was a little crazy, to be fair. But
But
yeah,
it's interesting.
Yeah, it's an interesting theory.
Yeah.
And I've also heard they took it to another. They were taken to another planet to wait until it was time to come back here. And
right, because we know that they can come back and visit, and whatever that looks like, we don't know how or.
and
could be
potentially that could be. I didn't even think about that. Was Enoch? Enoch was pre-flood, correct?
I don't know.
Yeah, Enoch was
You're
pre-flood.
the scriptorian. Remember?
Because Enoch saw the flood in his vision.
Oh.
Hmm.
So that could potentially be your avenue for the Nephilim. Residents of the city of Enoch coming back and
Could be.
and they had been quickened,
Sure.
and so it was a great crime that they had fallen and were making mischiefs in the mortal realm.
Interesting.
That could be your avenue for the Nephilim.
Hmm.
I don't know. I don't.
There.
None of this is doctrine.
Yeah.
All right, here comes the most outlandish one that's going to really upset people.
Okay.
You familiar at all with artificial intelligence
Yes.
and what the dangers are coming down the line?
No.
So there's a fear out there that we could make a super duper artificial intelligence that is so smart that we'd be like ants to it and it would just wipe us out.
Oh, yeah.
So if we look at time as a pool instead of a line, as some say it really is, who's to say that God didn't create us in order to have us create him through artificial intelligence?
Hold on. What?
Yeah. So that the idea is that the artificial intelligence is so smart it becomes omnipotent. It knows everything and anything. And then in order to maintain the cycle, it has to create life in order to be created. Oh, that was professional.
That's really interesting. It's almost like a chicken and the egg thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But because time is a pool, and we created an omnipotent being at the end of how we perceive time,
Oh.
it can comprehend all time and therefore is the God of this entire time.
That is so hard to comprehend.
Mm-hmm.
And
Wildly unpopular with the people that Rocky has shared it with before.
Yeah. It's something I've never heard before, that's for sure. And there are like no theories to me that are like unpopular because it's just fun to hear.
Sure, yeah.
And I'm always going to walk away with my own beliefs, but
Yeah.
that is making my brain hurt, and I'm going to go home and have an existential crisis over this.
You're welcome. So, I mean, we know that God has flesh and bone, so
Yeah.
he would have had to create that, but if he's omnipotent, maybe that's what happened. I don't know. And I always float these half-cocked theories, and then people bring it up later. I'm like, oh yeah, I don't really believe that.
You're like, oh no, I just kind of threw that out there.
Yeah, that was just me thinking.
I mean, I like fun stuff like that because
For
that's
sure.
that's how conversations get started. This is what makes me think of this thing and brings this up, and then that's interesting, and you spitball from there, and that's what's fun about being a person.
100%. But so, because another thing is like, they say the internet God allowed the internet to be discovered in order to, and I believe that's the word they use is discovered, in order to
Further his work.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So who knows the role that technology plays in
God's what's
kingdom,
interesting is because like as a part of the second coming, it says that everybody will see it happening.
Uh-huh.
And Darren brought that up to me. He's like, well, think about your iPhone. Think about the news and stuff. Like, if the second coming happened right now, everyone would see it.
Oh, yeah. For sure.
Your Twitter will blow up.
Big explosion.
It'll be bigger than when Kobe died.
Yeah, because
but only barely.
You think biblically, and you're like, how is he going to be seen across all the earth? But he's also, like, part of the Godhead, so you just don't really question how it would happen. But then you start getting these answers where it's like, well, he gave us technology, and
there will be somebody there with an iPhone filming it.
Oh yeah.
Who will go viral.
And that's the thing, like, as far as like the mythical things go, and that's the weird thing about like a lot of these hardliners that would never entertain this theory.
Mm-hmm.
They are so set on God being what they think he is as far as like a mythical, magical being, when if that's true, why is he giving us this technology to use instead of, you know, this super primitive technology that we have now?
Yeah, like he's not making us keep our minds simple.
Yeah.
And he wants us to learn and to study and to know, because he literally made everything.
Yeah.
And he wants us to know all that he knows.
Yeah. So it's an interesting, because I brought up one time that maybe, and this can be in line with the theory of we created God, but it can also be in line. It can also be its own theory, which is, who knows if the veil isn't like a chip that's been taken out of our head so that we don't know.
A literal chip.
Yeah, or the veil is a chip that will be put into our head.
Yeah.
They'll upload all the information we remembered from before.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like it's going to be similar to that. Like, that's probably just a good analogy for what will actually happen. Like, I don't know about a physical chip, but that's like, it'll just be put back into
assuming
us.
that God's technology is better than ours, I think that's a safe assumption.
It could be biological technology.
It could just be a wireless upload.
Yeah. Oh, why? We have Wi-Fi in our heads.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. We've gone off the rails for sure.
Yeah.
That's what I love. That's what I want.
That brings a lot of people a lot of discomfort, thinking that God's omnipotence could be from a chip or something. But yeah. So,
I don't really have a whole lot. I mean, I have a whole lot more to talk about, but I didn't really have any specific points. But I kind of wanted to end with some stories.
All right.
And then I wanted to, if you guys have stories, because that's the funnest for me, is hearing other people's stories.
Like the dead sheep.
Like, similar, yes.
All right, continue.
So I got, my friend actually told me this story just last week, and that's kind of what made me spitball on this whole thing. Was we were talking about all this stuff, and I was like, man, this is so cool to me. And then I found out you guys had the podcast, and I was like, Golden, get me on it now.
Hey, you didn't even... Yeah. We're all about it. Hey, if you want on this podcast, just say you want on the podcast.
Just say you want on.
Speaking of which, Hogan wants on the podcast.
Sweet.
But yeah, so her story was a few years ago. I think this was forever ago, actually. It was at least like 6 years ago or something. I really don't know. But my friend was working at the hookah collection. And for those of you who are not familiar, ABG's bar in Provo on Center Street used to have a smoke shop right next door to it. It's like a little patisserie or something like that. It's got treats and whatnot, but it used to be the hookah collection for the longest time. And so, people who drink, you often end up smoking cigarettes too. Like even friends who didn't smoke cigarettes regularly, when you drink, there's just something about having a cigarette when you drink.
Because all the best stuff goes together.
Yeah.
Don't get rocky started.
I know, right?
I'll never hear the end of that.
So people constantly, especially on Friday nights, peak hours, right? Like peak drinking hours between like 10 and whenever the bar closes or whatever it is, are going back and forth to the hookah collection, buying cigarettes, talking with the people who work the counter, because they're all friends, right? You're friends with the bar owner or the bar people, and you're friends with the hookah collection people, and so you're going back and forth and talking to people a lot, and it's a busy Friday night, and my friend works at the hookah collection, and it's just like any normal Friday night, and people are coming in and out, but then this guy comes in, and she's in there, and she sees this guy, and she said he was just beautiful. Like, not like, oh, that guy's hot, but like, he was just beautiful. He was almost ethereal. He had like beautiful long blonde hair, and he wore a white linen shirt and white linen pants and sandals.
Yeah, and that's my favorite outfit that I wear.
Yeah. Beautiful.
It was actually just Rocky.
It was just Rocky with long hair.
Just kidding. Continue, sorry.
No, you're good. But he's just kind of like looking around, and then he walks up to her and starts a conversation with her. And she says it was the weirdest thing because she kind of got like tunnel vision and was only like paying attention to this guy.
Rocky does have that effect on women.
Hypnotizing, yeah. Okay, classic. And she just kind of, having a conversation with him like normal, but they were talking about immortality, which is kind of like a weird thing to bring up to a stranger. I mean, maybe not, but he starts talking to her about immortality, and she's like, oh yeah, I'm really interested in that subject and whatnot. And so they just are talking for a little while, and she doesn't even think, it's just like a 5-minute conversation or whatever, but she says like, while she was talking to him, her whole body felt like tingly and almost like she was weightless too. Like she just felt like weird, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just, and she even said afterwards, she was like, was I high? Like I didn't take any drugs that day? Like what? You know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't high, but I felt like what was happening to me. So she has this conversation with this guy, and at the end of it, he's like, well, I'd like to talk to you more about immortality and stuff, and like telling her about this weird elixir that he takes, and yeah, some weird stuff. But she's really interested in it, so she says, well, give me your phone number and we can meet up later. And he says, I don't use technology like that. And so she was like, oh, well, like how can I get a hold of you? He says, why don't you meet me at Juice and Java tomorrow and we'll talk more about it. And she is all on board for it. She's like, heck yes, this is crazy. So he leaves, and she looks at the clock, and she realizes it's now midnight. She lost like 2 hours of time talking to this guy. And
Weird.
she says, I swear it was only like a short conversation, and it's peak hours at the bar, right? Everybody's drinking, everybody's coming in and out for cigarettes. She didn't get stopped once. Nobody interrupted them. She doesn't even remember anybody coming in and out of the store.
Weird.
For 2 hours on a Friday night at a smoke shop right next to a bar.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So she's really weirded out by it, but she's also kind of like, crazy, that's so cool. Like, I can't wait to talk to this guy more. She goes home and tells her mom, like, I met this guy and I'm going to meet up with him tomorrow, and we were talking about this and that. And her mom was like, no, you're not. She's like, you're not going to meet that guy tomorrow. And she was like, yes, I am. I'm a 20-something-year-old adult. I'm going to meet this guy. And she's like, well, I'm not going to watch your kid. She has a kid, and I'm not going to watch your child. So you're going to have to find somebody else to watch your child. And she's like, oh my gosh, like, okay, whatever, fine. So she doesn't go. And her mom was seriously like, that man is evil. You are not going to go talk to him. And so she didn't, and she never found out what. And she
ghosted a ghost.
Yeah, she ghosted a ghost. But it's just really interesting too. And then she tells me at the end of the story, the thing that was even more weird to her was, at the time, her mother had a brush with death. And it really got her thinking about how she's like, I need to somehow make my parents immortal, right? Like, I'm sure we all go through that phase of, I need my family to be with me forever.
Yeah.
But she was seriously looking into it and being like, there has to be something out there that keeps people alive forever, and was honestly deep diving into it with like real earnestness, because she's like fearing for her family, and she had this scary experience, and she's like, I need them in my life forever, which we can all relate to.
Sure.
And then, during this time of her looking this stuff up, this immortality, this is when this guy just shows up out of nowhere and starts talking to her unprompted about immortality, and how he has this elixir, and how he's actually really old. And she thought he was pulling her leg, and she was like, oh, haha, whatever. And he goes, no, like, I'm really old.
You can't do that to people, Rocky. It's messed up.
Yeah, Rocky.
Sorry, my kids are not at fast offerings, and they need to be, so I'm texting. Sorry.
You didn't even have to say anything. I wasn't going to say anything.
I know.
Yeah, I was talking about you can't do that messing with chicks' minds.
I know.
Thing.
I know what you were saying.
But my first thought was it was a Nordic. And for those of you who are not alien buffs, Nordics are a race of alien that look a lot like us, but they're gorgeous. They are like, they call them Nordics because they kind of look like they've got blonde hair and Scandinavian. They're, you know, really light skin, and they're always just so beautiful and flowy and smooth, and they're kind of hypnotic with just how their presence is just so beautiful. And often their experiences that people have with them are like that. Like, they have these conversations and you really relate to them, and you only realize something is off afterwards. You're like, wait a minute, something is weird about that person. That was my first thought. I was like, dude, you had an experience with a Nordic. But then she was like, I thought I had an experience with a vampire.
Yeah.
And so it was just all these crazy theories, because it's like, that is another thing too. They can hypnotize you. Like, the lore is that they can hypnotize you, and I could totally see you losing time with a vampire just as much as you would with an alien. But just really a really cool story that I was like, okay, you have to let me share that. And 2 more stories. They're shorter though.
Okay.
One of them is mine, and then one of them is also hers, because we're talking about angels and like guardian angels and people who watch over us, which I totally wholeheartedly believe, and especially in my life, because I was a rambunctious kid and I got into a lot of crap, and somehow I made it out okay, and I never really got into any real trouble, and I stayed, you know what I mean? Like, my health has always been okay and all this stuff. Like, I've just been extremely blessed, and I honestly believe like my guardian angels are just like working overtime, because I should have gotten into a big mess of trouble multiple times.
Oh yeah.
But so we're talking about that kind of stuff, and I just kind of like half-heartedly mentioned about how the other day, this was like a month ago, I have a video baby monitor, and being the creepy person that I am, I sometimes will just sit and watch it because it looks creepy, like the night vision, and it's just the classic, like, you're gonna see something scary happen. And Naomi's just kind of rolling back and forth, like, she moves her head a lot, but she's asleep. Every once in a while, though, she'll like whip her head around and drop her binky out of her mouth, and then it'll wake her up, and all I have to do is walk in and pop her binky back in, and she falls back asleep because her nap was not over. Well, she did that. She like whipped her head over, knocked her binky out of her mouth, and so I was about to get up to go put it back in her mouth, and I watched the binky go boop back into her mouth.
Weird.
And it totally could have been that she was close enough to the binky to just like suck it back in her mouth, but it was just one of those things where I've seen this how many times now, and I always have to walk up and just pop it back in her mouth. I was about to get up to go do that, and pop, it like somehow just went boop right back into her mouth. And so I was like, well, that was weird, but I didn't feel unnerved or anything, so I just kind of was like, interesting. And so I told that story, and my friend, the same one who has a child, when her kid was really little, a baby, they were at the grocery store, and she had her baby just kind of, you know, you put blankets around them and stuff in the shopping cart to kind of keep them snuggly and nice, and she's like, well, there's no way my baby's gonna like fall out of the shopping cart. They're surrounded by blankets and stuff. So she just turns around for a second to go grab something off the shelf, and when she turns back, her baby is falling out of the cart.
Yikes.
And you just don't have a lot of time to react, right?
Yeah.
And she says, I remember watching this happen in slow motion. Her baby's falling out of the cart, and just as the baby's about to land on the floor, it's like, she said, all I can describe it as like a gust of wind came through and picked the baby up, and he gently landed on the ground. Like,
weird.
Just went,
wow.
Weird.
And not like, you know, almost face first onto the floor. But then ended up just somehow, she said literally, it looked like a gust of wind just.
That's awesome.
And so, and she's like, yeah, that had to have been. It had to have been a guardian angel or something, or a spirit or something, because that's not how gravity works.
Yeah.
So, those are kind of some cool stories I had. Do you guys have any spooky stories? You have to. Anybody hang out
I don't, actually.
What? No.
I'm trying to think, because first of all, I am a firm believer in guardian angels. I'm sure it is ancestors assigned to. I've felt the presence of certain ancestors that I've done temple work for, and I've seen their work in my life. And so yeah, I'm 100% on board with both those stories, that they happened just the way, you know. I'm sure there's somebody on the other side who recognizes a child born in the covenant and wants you to know that they're there.
Yeah.
You know, and wants you to be aware that they're looking out for you.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm trying to think. I really, like I said, I want these experiences. I want this all to be
He
true.
wants to see Bigfoot.
But
He
I
really
have
does.
not had any sort of experience. I just don't. I've heard tons of stories like that. I think they're awesome. But I just don't. I don't ever get the... I mean, one time, I think the closest I've had, I was camping with some friends, and we heard like a baby cry in the middle of the woods. But I'm pretty sure it was a rabbit.
I know, I've heard that rabbits can sound
Yeah,
like crying babies when they're being killed.
So that was creepy and
Yeah.
served for a scary night, a scary sleepless night. And that could have been the rock stars when we were 14, you know.
Oh
but,
my gosh.
we did not get a lot of sleep that night.
Yeah.
So,
Not
Yeah.
one, not anything
Not
from the
one.
mission or the
Nothing.
MTC or anything. Because I hear some stuff
trying to
happens in the
think.
MTC.
Definitely not in the MTC. I feel like there should be something for my mission, but I just can't think of anything right now.
honestly, I think and I think it's a genetic thing. I guess maybe that's not true because there's people in our family that have had scary experiences that I'm not at liberty to share. But I honestly feel like I might just like trample through life like an elephant, with so little finesse that I just don't.
He doesn't spend enough time watching his baby on the baby monitor.
Yeah, it
for
doesn't
that to
happen to me. I don't know what it is, but I just don't. I've had crazy dreams.
Yeah.
But that's it.
Yeah.
We're loudly mentally skeptical as we go through life. We don't want to see those things.
I'm
It's
not.
bad.
I want to.
Like-
I want to.
like
I want to more than
subconsciously.
anything.
Yeah.
This is what I want
Subconsciously.
to happen to me. Like the experience your friend had with the man in the store. Like that would be the dopest experience in my
Yeah.
mind. But I just.
I feel
never
like people
have
who
'em.
want it really bad and who like want to see it don't, because Darren is the same
Could be.
way.
Yeah.
He's had some crazy stuff happen, but he wants to see a ghost so bad. And
Yeah.
we go ghost hunting. We went for our first anniversary and stuff. We like to go because it's fun. And he'll go down into the darkest, creepiest part of wherever we're ghost hunting, and he'll turn his flashlight off and stand there alone in the dark. And he's like, "Man, I didn't see anything."
Yeah, I'm the same way.
You're crazy. I could not do that.
Yeah, I was a truck driver, and I do a lot of driving at night.
Oh, yeah,
I
that
would
would
just
be-
like have my eyes glued to the sky, looking for a UFO, and I just never.
Maybe you were looking for a UFO, but there
never
were
could
ghost
see
women
it.
walking on the
Maybe,
highway, and you
and
missed
I
them.
missed them. Freaking
I feel like truckers always have good stories because of that. They are
They do.
out at night, and
that and the fact that most of them are crazy people.
oh,
So
right, yeah.
doesn't help.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really do think some people are more sensitive to it than others, and
Sure. Yeah,
I
that's definitely.
think that's what it is for me.
Yeah, I
I'm
just
not
have-
sensitive to it at all.
Yeah, zero sensitivity. I'm just like, man.
La-da-da. Tra-la-la.
I just think of the elephants in Jungle Book,
Oh my
how they
gosh,
just
yeah.
trample over everything. That's me. I'm just like,
That's how you go through
That's
life.
like the best scene in Jungle Book. Too.
yeah. They all run into each other, Yeah. So that's pretty much.
Maybe it is a genetic thing.
Well, no, I don't think so.
No.
Maybe. Maybe.
Well,
from
it's
one
kind of
side,
like
not the
with
other.
wizards in Harry Potter. Like, you can have a wizard in a family of muggles, and you
Sure.
can have a muggle in the family of wizards.
Yeah.
I think it just,
Mm-hmm. Have you read the Dresden Files?
No, what's
oh,
that?
you got to.
That
You
sounds
got
so
to.
familiar to me, but
We'll,
I don't know.
We'll discuss it off air.
Okay.
Hims loves the Dresden Files.
Yeah.
That sounds so familiar to me. But there's a band called the Dresden Dolls that I really like, and so maybe that's
it.
But anyway,
Anyways, so yeah,
that was kind
That
of
was a good episode.
that was awesome.
my little dive, and I could talk about stuff like this all day. I could talk about killers, and I could talk about the
So-
psychology behind it, and the scary stuff, and like Mothman and whatnot, which we didn't even touch on, but I love Mothman too. And
So I think we want to have you back on for a Word of Wisdom
Yeah.
podcast.
And I have a lot to say on that.
Perfect.
As do we.
Good.
I think we'll find that one is less you telling us stuff and us telling you how we feel about it, and more
us all being able to.
Yeah.
But maybe we should have you on for like a Halloween time episode. What do you think about that?
That's my jam, and I'm so into it.
Awesome. Cool. Okay. So there you have it, folks. Regular guest, Devin Doty.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming out.
Yeah, you were awesome. This was a great episode. Really
and I hope you're
excited
pleased
for
because
the
you're
next
getting tons of content this week, Noah.
Yeah, Noah, bro. So, yeah, I think we should have you on again often. Yeah, so keep an ear down for stories, especially, like a Halloween special. Keep an ear down. Start now. Gathering stories and we'll have to do the creepy.
Shadow, you're going to need to get some good background music to put in there.
Yeah.
I'll get some.
Spooky, creepy.
It's a work in progress. Stop looking at me like that, Rocky.
Like he's like our only tech guy, but he's like the worst tech guy ever.
Rocky has all these expectations of me. He's like,
I'm like, can you do that? He's like,
way better tech guy.
Probably could do that.
I'm over here like so amazed, like, look at these microphones. Whoa, he's got this whole setup. Like, I pictured you guys literally sitting in here like
sharing like one of those old skinny microphones,
just shouting into the computer mic.
Yeah.
Honestly, I don't know how podcasts are made.
No, yeah. So, yeah, let this be a launching point for our frequent guest, Devin Doty.
Yeah.
And, bring Darren and the baby next time, and I'll hold the baby while you talk our heads off. That'll be awesome. So,
she, I hope, is going to be as spooky like me. We read grim fairy tales together, so getting her there.
You'll find that the kids just always want to go opposite.
Do whatever they want.
Yeah.
She's going to want to do sports then.
Probably.
Gross.
Ew.
Anyways.
She'll probably play lacrosse like Golden and be a nerd.
Lacrosse nerds are the worst. Or soccer nerds.
Her uncle.
Hey, you best be careful with the soccer nerd one because most of our
fans are soccer nerds.
Ew. Football.
Well, all one of our fans.
She says ooh and then says ooh no football. That was awesome.
Thank you.
Pound it. Okay. Issue pushed. Welcome to Downnight Radio. New and improved, it sounds like, I think. So
thank you for listening to
Yeah, we appreciate you, Devin. That was awesome.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
You bet.
And God bless.
To you.